Hi, this is video number 2 in this, well, let's call it a series about the time I spent helping in Khao Lak after the tsunami 2004. One of the people who made a big impression on me, one of the people that I'm gonna remember forever, was a 9-year-old girl from Sweden. I was talking to a young British couple who was sitting in the corridor. They had minor injuries after the tsunami. It was not serious, nothing serious. It was just scrapes, bruises, and some small cuts and stuff. So they were just sitting on the bench in the corridor. After we talked for a little while, they found out I was from Denmark, and they said that in the room just opposite the corridor, opposite where we were sitting, just across the corridor, they had seen there was a young girl. They thought she would be Scandinavian from her look, and she kind of just sat there, and they tried to talk to her, but she didn't react. She just kind of sat there, looked straight ahead, without reacting at all. So they figured that she didn't understand what they were saying, and she was obviously in shock. So they thought it would be a good idea if I go talk to her. So I did. I went across the corridor and walked into the room. And on a mat on the floor was a girl, and right away when I saw her, I just figured, that girl is Swedish. She just, I don't know why or what it was, but she just looked Swedish. And I went over and kneeled down in front of her on the mat and greeted her in Swedish. And that kind of triggered something, because she just started talking. And everybody else in the room just kind of looked at her like, what? Because she hadn't said a word since she arrived. And this was the 27th, it was the day after the tsunami. And she arrived, I think it was around lunchtime or something like that, on the 26th. So she's been there almost 24 hours and she hadn't said anything, and all of a sudden she just talked. And she told me all about what had happened. She had been on the beach with her mother. They decided to go back to the bungalow. Their dad had gone on the motorcycle to town to buy breakfast. They had been for a morning swim, all three of them. So he had taken off and gone to the bakery in town. Just after they entered the bungalow, they kind of heard some strange noise from outside. And the mum wanted to look what was going on. When she opened the door, the bungalow just filled up with water. The girl told me that she figured this would be like being in a washing machine, because they were just tumbled around inside with water. And very quickly the whole bungalow just filled up with water. And she was almost drowning. She tried to swim and almost panicked. And then it was like, all of a sudden she was outside, and the bungalow had collapsed, and she had been swept outside. And she was taken by the water and rushed away. She was trying to swim. She told me she was a good swimmer. She just did everything she could to avoid hitting the trees. And you have to remember, a tsunami is moving fast. The water was moving very fast, and it was full of debris from buildings, trees, all kinds of stuff. And obviously she would bump into stuff, and she got bruises and cuts, and she had a cut quite deep actually to her thigh. And at the hospital the doctors hadn't had time to stitch her up or anything, so they just cleaned it and wrapped it with gauze. Well, anyway, she kept telling me about when the tsunami took her, and at one point the water kind of slowed down, and she grabbed hold of a palm tree because she thought she would hold on to it so she at least didn't drown. just after she grabbed hold of the palm tree, the water kind of stopped. And she was like, what's going on? But obviously, it's a wave. And it rushes inland, and then it stops when it kind of runs out of energy. Then there will be complete silence for a little while, and then the water go back out. Just like a wave on the beach. But here, it was, like 1 kilometer inland. After the water was gone, or most of the water was gone, she tried to climb down from the palm tree, and she told me that's when she got the cut in her thigh. Because palm trees, they're not smooth like normal trees. They're very sharp, actually. They're not good for climbing. Not when you don't know what you're doing, at least. You sometimes see these guys who climb up the palm tree and pick the coconuts. They know what they're doing. This 9-year-old, she didn't know. So she got a cut in her thigh. But she got down anyway, and she was trying to walk. She grabbed hold of a stick, used it as a cane so she could walk. She wanted to go back to the bungalow to find her mother. And obviously to find her mom and her dad. After she walked a little bit, she could see the houses were destroyed all around her. There was, dead people, dead animals, cars, houses, just thrown around. She kept on walking the way she thought the water had gone. She was trying to walk back to the bungalow. After a little while, quite a while actually, you remember this was very difficult to walk in this. First of all, there was a lot of mud. There was a lot of dead trees fallen over, a lot of branches, buildings, cars, all kinds of stuff just thrown around, So it was very hard work for this little girl. But she walked, and then some rescue people saw her. And they contacted her. And she couldn't talk to them because they didn't speak English. But they knew one word, and that was hospital. So they point at her leg, and the blood was running down her leg from the cut. And they say hospital. And she understood that. So she go with them to the hospital. And in the hospital she couldn't talk to anyone because she was not good at English. She didn't understand much English. So she couldn't talk to anyone. No one spoke Swedish before I came in. She was talking for at least half an hour. More than half an hour, I think. 40 minutes maybe. And for most of that time, I was just sitting next to her, putting my arm around her. She was talking, crying, talking some more. And then at one point I say to her, don't you think you should try to sleep? Because people had told me that she hadn't slept. She had just sat there. So I say to her, you should try to sleep, girl. So she lay down. And I was just sitting next to her. Because I thought, well, I'll stay here till she sleeps. So I just sat there and, try to make her feel, like she was not alone. Just holding her hand, yeah. After a little while, it didn't take 5 minutes, then she was asleep. So I kind of tucked her in and got up and went to check on other people that I've talked to. A little later on, I went back and she had actually woken up and she was eating. One of the nurses had been around and gave her some food, and she looked better, that's for sure. She was getting some food and some water, and so I just sat down and then I asked her if she remembered the phone number of anyone in Sweden. She told me she remembered the phone number of her grandmother. So I told her to tell me, and I called her grandmother on my mobile. And I let her talk to her grandmother. They were talking for a while. I talked to the grandmother as well. And I promised the grandmother that I would do anything I could to help this girl. The grandmother asked me if I could find someone who could take her. First she asked me if I could take her back to Sweden. I told the grandmother I cannot do that because I live in Thailand. I'm not a tourist. But I will try to see if I can find someone who can take her, some tourist who can take her back to Sweden. I made a promise, so I had to do it. After talking to the girl about this, the grandmother had talked to the girl about it also. I went out in the corridors and I had the thought about this in my mind, and I went out to help other people and talk to other people, and at one point 2 young guys came to ask me. They brought a picture, if I had seen a young lady in the picture. Well, it was a Thai lady and I hadn't seen her, but there was something about the way they spoke. So I asked them if they were Scandinavians. And they said, yeah, they were from Sweden. I asked them what area in Sweden they were from. And they told me. The same area as the young girl. I asked these 2 guys if they had any possibilities in the world to bring her home. I told them, don't answer me now. Don't make the decision right now. Think about it. If you want to do it, I'm in this area of the hospital. You can come back and tell me. If you decide not to do it, it's okay. Just forget about it then. It's no worry. I don't blame you. And I don't blame you for not coming back and telling me, because I know it could be kind of embarrassing to go back and say we don't want to help that girl. It would be a tough thing to do. So I say, just think about it and consider it. And if you want to do it, it would mean the world to her, because she's all alone. They went on their way. I went on with my things. And I think it was like 5 minutes later, the 2 young guys came back to me and they said, yeah, we're going to do it. We talked to the parents, to the family of this young lady. It was the girlfriend of one of them. We talked to the family, and the family promised that if they find her, they will contact me. So this young girl, she need help, and we're ready to help her. We went back to the girl and talked to her about it, and we called the grandmother, talked to the grandmother about it. The 2 young guys, they had their Swedish passport with them. So I talked to the grandmother and I told her their names and their personal numbers. And they told me their address in Sweden, and the grandmother actually checked that. In Sweden you can check things like that on the computer. So just so that we were sure they were who they said they were, because, well, you don't let a 9-year-old leave with just anyone. The grandmother needed to know for sure that who had brought her, who was bringing her grandchild. The grandmother agreed to that they should bring the grandchild. The girl agreed to go with them. And I talked to a nurse about it, and the nurse said this girl is not registered in the hospital, so she can leave with them. If you're sure everything is the way it's supposed to be, and it's safe for the girl to go with these 2 guys, then it's a good idea. At this time, Thai Airways had made this thing that anyone who go to the airport and tell them they need a ticket to, in this case Sweden, they would be given a ticket for free. They fly to all their destinations for free. The immigration of Thailand had also made this announcement that They didn't need to see any passports or anything. Anyone could leave Thailand, no problems, no questions asked. So, because they knew people had been in a disaster, most people had lost their belongings, no one had passports, a lot of people did not even have clothes. This girl was in a bikini, a two-piece bikini. You know, she had just been to the beach. I asked the nurse if there was any way she could get something to put on, this young girl, because she can't go to the airport in a bikini and coming back to Sweden. It's December, it would be winter and snow. And they said they didn't really have anything, but then the nurse said, just a second. After a couple of minutes, she came back with a big towel, you know, just so she could wrap that around her. It was very nice of this nurse to do this, because she didn't have to do it, you know, but, well. So I gave the towel to the girl, and the two young guys and the girl, they left. And that was actually the last thing I saw of this girl. But it was not the end of the story, because it was the second day after the tsunami. On the 5th day after the tsunami, basically all foreigners had been moved out from the hospital, either sent home or moved to other hospitals of Thailand in areas where there was now so many people, you know, because there was far too many people in this hospital. So they took them to other hospitals to relieve the pressure on this one. Then we were not far off leaving back to our home in the eastern part of Thailand, my friend and I, when we saw a European and actually a Scandinavian-looking man walking into the hospital. And I thought, I better contact that guy because, well, maybe I can help. So I walked over to him and asked him if I could help him. He told me that he was Swedish and he was looking for his wife and his daughter. I asked for the name of the name and the age of the people he looked for. And the name of the daughter was the same name as the girl I've helped early on. I took him to the wall, you know, the place where we put all the pictures of all the foreigners in the hospital, and showed him the picture of the young girl. It was her. It was his daughter. I looked at him and said, "You didn't call your mom back in Sweden?" And he said, "No, he didn't call home because he didn't want them to worry." This kind of came as a surprise to me because didn't want them to worry. He was in a disaster zone. Everybody, the entire world knew about this disaster, about the tsunami, and he didn't want anyone to worry. Everybody worried. His family knew he was there. His family knew he was in Thailand and on the west coast. Of course they worried already, but I figured it must be the shock. So, at this time, a lot of other telephone companies had put phones, landline phones that everybody could use for free to make overseas call. So I told him, "You call your mom, your daughter is back home." He called his mother in Sweden, and after the conversation he told me that his daughter was back home in Sweden. She had been to the hospital already and had the bruises and cuts looked after. She had the cut in her thigh stitched, cleaned and stitched, and it was getting better already now. She had talked to a psychologist. She had had a lot of help already, and she was staying with his mom. So she felt a lot better. He agreed with his mom that he should stay in Thailand and look for his wife for a while, because, well, maybe he could find his wife as well. Now he found his daughter alive. We went each our way. He was obviously thankful to me, but he went on to look for his wife, and I never heard from them again. But I know the girl got back to Sweden and she got the help she needed. Well, that was the story of one of the victims of the tsunami 2004 that I was in contact with. I got more stories to come. Thank you for listening. And remember, even in disaster situations like this, well, maybe mostly in situations like this, life is precious and life is good. Bye bye.